"This woman left me at the orphanage," said the little girl. Then the millionaire notices something incredible about the girl and decides to do something unexpected. Comment what you thought of this story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and tell me what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better, so subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The Spring Hill Cemetery in Charleston was silent that Thursday morning, with only the sound of the wind rustling the leaves of the oak trees surrounding the oldest tombs. David Sinclair, 52, was kneeling before the white marble headstone that still smelled of fresh flowers, his trembling hands holding a wallet-sized photo of his wife, Eleanor. A week had passed since the accident, but the pain seemed to grow with each passing day. "Why did you have to leave like that?" he murmured, tears streaming down his bearded face as he caressed the photo. "We didn't even get to say a proper goodbye." Eleanor had departed on a rainy night, returning from a meeting David never knew the exact nature of. She had always been private about her personal commitments, but in the last 2 years she had become even more mysterious, frequently leaving the house for charity work that she never fully explained. The mining entrepreneur closed his eyes, trying to control the sob that threatened to turn into despair. He had built an empire with his own hands, earned the respect of the entire city, but at that moment, he felt completely lost and alone. "Mister, are you crying?" The childish voice made him open his eyes with a start. A small girl, about 4 years old, was standing a few feet away. Her brown hair was messy, and her clothes, though clean, were visibly old and patched. She held a cloth doll that looked like it had seen better days. "I'm sorry, little one," David said, quickly wiping away his tears. "You shouldn't be here alone. Where are your parents?" The girl took a few steps closer, her large dark eyes fixed on the photo he still held. "I don't have parents. I live at the St. Vincent's Orphanage." She paused, tilting her head to the side. "That woman in the photo? I know her." David's heart stopped. For a moment, "What do you mean you know her?" "She used to visit the kids at the orphanage. She always wore sunglasses and a hat, but I recognize her smile." The girl pointed to the photo. "She would talk to me and always asked about my real parents." David felt a chill run down his spine. "When was the last time you saw her?" "It was the day before yesterday," the child answered naturally. "She was very sad and cried a lot. She said that soon she would be able to tell me something very important about my family." The world seemed to stop around David. The day before yesterday. Eleanor had been buried 3 days ago, but this child claimed to have seen her just 2 days prior. It was impossible. "Are you sure it was this woman?" he asked, showing the photo again. The girl nodded with conviction. "Yes, I am. She always said that one day she would take me to meet someone very special in my family, and she always cried when I told her I don't remember anything about my parents." "What's your name?" David asked, his voice hoarse. "Anna. Just Anna. Because I don't know who my parents are." She sat on the ground beside him, hugging her doll. "Aunt Carmen at the orphanage says my parents left me there when I was a baby, but the woman in the photo always said that wasn't quite right." Carmen. David knew that name. Eleanor had mentioned a friend named Carmen a few times, always vaguely, saying it was someone from her past she had recently reconnected with. "Anna, can you take me to this orphanage?" David asked, putting the photo in his shirt pocket. "Yes, I can. But why do you want to go?" "But why? And there, do you know the woman in the photo?" David looked at the small child who had just turned his world upside down. "She was my wife. And if you really saw her the day before yesterday, I need to find out how that's possible." During the walk through the historic cobblestone streets of downtown Charleston, Anna shared more details that left David increasingly confused. The woman always visited the orphanage on Thursday afternoons, always alone, and always asked to speak specifically with the children who had been left there in the last 4 years. She brought me some toys and always asked if I had any memories of my parents. When I said no, she would get very sad, Anna recounted, hopping over the uneven stones of the sidewalk. And she never told you her name? No. Aunt Carmen always called her Mom, but never said her name, and she always wore those big sunglasses, even when it was cloudy. The St. Vincent's Orphanage was in a 2-story yellow colonial house with a discreet sign on the main door. David had never paid attention to the place, even though he passed by it several times on his routes through the city. "This is it," Anna said, pushing open the iron gate that creaked loudly. "Aunt Carmen should be in her office." When they entered, several children ran to greet Anna, who was clearly loved by everyone. A woman of about 50 appeared at a doorway, her smile fading immediately upon seeing David. "Anna, where were you? And who is this gentleman?" "Aunt Carmen, this is the husband of the woman who comes to visit us. You know, the one with the sunglasses?" Carmen's expression changed completely. Her face turned pale, and her hands began to tremble visibly. "Sir, I don't think we'd better talk in private," she said, casting a worried glance at Anna. "Girls, how about playing in the yard while the adults talk?" When they were alone in the small room that served as an office, Carmen closed the door and turned to face David with tears in her eyes. "I knew this day would come," she whispered, "but I didn't think it would be so soon." David sat in the creaky wooden chair Carmen offered, feeling his heart beat erratically in his chest. The small room smelled of old coffee and musty paper, with files stacked on every available surface. "Carmen, I need you to tell me everything about my wife's visits," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Eleanor passed away a week ago, but Anna told me she saw her the day before yesterday. How is that possible?" The orphanage director wrung her hands nervously, avoiding eye contact. "Mr. Sinclair, it is David, isn't it? Eleanor talked a lot about you." "She talked about me? When? During these mysterious visits she never told me about? Please, try to understand. Your wife made me promise to keep it a secret." Carmen sighed deeply. "She started coming here 2 years ago, always on Thursdays. She said she was doing confidential charity work." "Confidential charity work?" David repeated, incredulous. "Eleanor never showed any interest in charity work, and why in secret?" "She said you wouldn't approve, that it was something very personal." Carmen walked to the window, watching the children play in the yard. From the beginning, she took a special interest in Anna. She always asked about the girl's history, about how she had gotten here. David's stomach tightened. "And you never found it strange that an unknown woman asked so many questions about a specific child?" "Eleanor wasn't a stranger to me," Carmen said softly, still with her back to him. "We were best friends as children. We lost touch when she moved away for college, but we ran into each other by chance at the supermarket 3 years ago." "You were childhood friends?" David had never heard Eleanor mention a friend named Carmen from Charleston. "And how was this reunion?" Carmen turned, her eyes red with unshed tears. She was very different, more serious, more reserved. She said she had married well, that she was happy, but there was something in her eyes, a deep sadness that I recognized from our youth. "What sadness?" "Eleanor always carried a weight, even when we were kids. She never told me exactly what it was, but I suspected it had to do with her family. Her parents were very strict, traditional." David leaned forward in his chair. "Carmen, I need to know. When was the last time Eleanor was here?" "It was last Thursday," she answered hesitantly. 2 days before the accident." "And how was she?" "Very anxious. She said the time had finally come to reveal the truth about something important that she had hired. Someone to help her resolve a very delicate situation. What situation? Carmen returned to her desk and opened a drawer, taking out a manila folder. She asked me to keep this. She said that if anything happened to her, I should give it to the person who came looking for Anna. David took the folder with trembling hands. Inside were several pages with information about children from the orphanage, all born about 4 years ago. Anna's name was highlighted in yellow, with notes in Eleanor's handwriting in the margins. What are these notes? Your wife was trying to trace Anna's origins. She believed there was an important family connection that needed to be discovered. Family connection? David's heart raced. What kind of connection? Eleanor never told me the details, but she was obsessed with the idea that Anna wasn't just another abandoned child. She kept saying she was sure the girl had family, that someone was looking for her. David flipped through the papers, finding copies of official documents and even photos of other children. She did this with other children too? No, only with Anna. And in the last 6 months, the visits became more frequent. Sometimes she came twice a week. At that moment, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Anna appeared with her shy smile, holding her cloth doll. "Aunt Carmen, can I come in?" Uncle David looked sad. "Of course, dear. Come here." Anna approached David, who watched her with new eyes after all he had discovered. "Why was the lady in the photo so interested in me?" the girl asked with her natural innocence. "Anna, do you remember anything from before you came to the orphanage?" David asked gently. "Not much. I only remember a song someone used to sing to me, and a nice smell, like cornbread." She hugged her doll tighter. "The lady in the photo always cried when I told her that. And she never said why she cried. She said it was because I reminded her of someone very important to her." Anna looked at Carmen. "Aunt Carmen, why did you never tell me you knew her since you were kids?" Carmen turned pale again. "Because she asked me not to, dear." "But why?" David felt like he was missing important pieces of the puzzle. "Carmen, there's something you're not telling me. Why would Eleanor do all this? In secret? Why the specific interest in Anna?" Before Carmen could answer, the office door opened abruptly. A tall man, about 60 years old, entered unceremoniously. His gray hair was disheveled, and his expression was one of urgency. "Carmen, I need to talk to you about—" "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you had a visitor." "Herman, this is not a good time," Carmen said nervously. David watched the exchange of glances between the two and sensed a tension in the air that he couldn't decipher. "Who are you?" he asked. The man hesitated, looking at Carmen as if asking for permission. "I'm Herman Roth, private investigator, and from what I can see, you must be Eleanor Sinclair's husband." David's blood ran cold. "How do you know who I am?" "Because your wife hired me 8 months ago to investigate Anna's past. And what I discovered will change everything you think you know about your family." Anna, sensing the tension in the room, hid behind Carmen's chair. The orphanage director had tears streaming down her face. "Herman, please, this isn't the time," she pleaded. "Carmen, he has the right to know. Eleanor was going to tell him everything last week, but—" Herman didn't finish the sentence. "Tell me what?" David stood up from the chair, feeling the world spin around him. "What do you two know that I don't?" Herman looked at Anna, then at Carmen, and finally at David. "Anna is not just any child abandoned in this orphanage, Mr. Sinclair. She is your granddaughter." The silence that followed Herman's revelation was deafening. David felt his legs weaken and had to lean on Carmen's desk to keep from falling. Anna watched him with her big, innocent eyes, not understanding the magnitude of what had just been revealed. "That's impossible," David murmured, his voice hoarse. "Eleanor and I never had children. We tried for years, but she couldn't get pregnant." Herman sighed heavily, taking a folder from his worn leather briefcase. Mr. Sinclair, your wife had a son 25 years ago, before she met you, a boy she gave up for adoption shortly after his birth. You're lying. David shook his head vigorously. Eleanor would have told me something like that. We were married for 15 years. She planned to tell you, Carmen intervened, wiping her tears. That's why she came here so often in recent months. She was trying to gather the courage to reveal everything. David looked at Anna, who was playing silently with her doll, oblivious to the adults' conversation. If that were true, where would this supposed son be? And how did Anna end up here? Herman opened the folder and took out several photographs and documents. Eleanor's son is named Michael Perry. He's 25 years old and works as a mechanic in Morgantown. He is Anna's biological father. And where is he now? Why is his daughter in an orphanage? It's a complicated story, Herman said, sitting in a nearby chair. Michael married a young woman named Talia Andrews 5 years ago. Anna was born from that relationship, but the mother disappeared 2 years ago, abandoning the girl with neighbors who later brought her here. David sat down heavily, trying to process all the information. And Eleanor knew all of this? She found out 8 months ago, Herman confirmed. She initially hired me to find the son she had given up for adoption. When we found out about Anna, she became desperate to bring her into the family. Why didn't she tell me immediately? Carmen approached, gently touching David's arm. She was afraid of your reaction. She was ashamed of the past, of having hidden the existence of her son for so long. But she planned to tell me? Yes, Herman replied. In fact, she had scheduled a meeting with Michael for last week. She wanted to talk to him first, explain the situation, and then bring him to meet you. Anna approached David, noticing his disturbed expression. Uncle David, why are you crying? David looked at the small child he had just discovered was his granddaughter and felt his heart break. I'm not crying, little one. I'm just surprised. Surprised about what? How could he explain to a 4-year-old child that her life had just changed completely, that she had a family she didn't even know existed? Anna, Carmen said gently, remember how we always said that maybe one day you would meet your real family? The girl nodded, hugging her doll tighter. Maybe that day has come, Carmen continued, looking at David. Where is Michael now? David asked Herman. Does he know about Eleanor? Does he know Anna is here? Michael knows nothing. His wife disappeared without explanation, taking only a few clothes. He spent months looking for her and Anna until he found out the girl had been taken to the orphanage. And why didn't he come get her? Herman hesitated before answering. Michael had some financial problems, gambling debts that left him in a very delicate situation. When he learned Anna was in an orphanage, he believed it would be better for her to stay there until he could get back on his feet. Gambling debts? David felt his stomach clench. He's trying to recover. He works honestly as a mechanic, but he's still paying the consequences of past mistakes. At that moment, the door opened again, and a young woman entered the room. She had long brown hair, tired eyes, and an anxious expression. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but they told me someone was here asking about Anna. Everyone turned to look at her. Anna dropped her doll and stood motionless, as if she had seen a ghost. Who are you? David asked. The woman looked directly at Anna, tears starting to stream down her face. I'm Talia, her mother. The silence that followed was even heavier than the last. Anna took a few hesitant steps toward the woman, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Mommy? The girl whispered. Hi, my love, Talia said, kneeling to be at her daughter's height. Mommy's back. David watched the scene with a mixture of shock and emotion. In just a few hours, he had discovered he had a grandson, and now Anna's mother was appearing out of nowhere. "Where have you been?" Anna asked, still keeping her distance. "Mommy was sick. I had to go to a special place to get better, but now I'm back to get you." Herman stood up, clearly disturbed by Talia's unexpected arrival. "How did you know we were here?" I've been following the situation from afar," Talia replied, avoiding eye contact. "When I heard about the accident with Mrs. Sinclair, I came as soon as I could." "You knew Eleanor?" David asked, feeling that there were still more secrets to be revealed. Talia looked at Herman, who nodded slightly. "She had been helping me financially for the past few months. She gave me the means to get treatment and get stable so I could come back for Anna." "Eleanor was helping you? How?" "She found out where I was 6 months ago. She sent money so I could get treatment for a problem with online gambling. She said she wanted me to be well so I could take proper care of Anna." David felt dizzy. His wife had hidden much more than he had imagined. Not just the existence of a son, but she had also been secretly helping the daughter-in-law she didn't even know she had. "And Michael?" Talia asked Herman. "Does he know I'm here?" "Not yet. We thought it best to resolve the situation with Mr. Sinclair first." Anna finally approached Talia, shyly touching her mother's face. "Are you going to stay with me now?" "I will, my love, forever." But David saw something in Talia's eyes that unsettled him. There was a hesitation there, a shadow of doubt that suggested things weren't as simple as she was making them seem. "Talia," he said, "I need to ask you a few questions. If Anna is really my granddaughter, I need to understand the whole situation." "Of course," she replied, but her voice trembled slightly. "Why did you abandon your daughter, and why did you come back right now?" The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and David realized that Talia's arrival had created more questions than answers. Talia lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she stroked Anna's hair. I didn't abandon her out of malice. It was a very complicated situation." "Complicated how?" David insisted, feeling he needed concrete answers. "Michael had gotten involved with dangerous people because of his debts. They started threatening our family." Talia paused, looking at Anna with guilt in her eyes. "I thought if I left, they would leave her alone." Herman frowned. "That doesn't match what Michael told me. He said you just disappeared one morning, without explanation." "Because I couldn't explain. If he knew the truth, he would have tried to stop me from leaving, and that would have put Anna in even more danger." Carmen approached, offering a glass of water to Talia, who accepted it with trembling hands. "And how did you know about Eleanor? How did she find you?" "She showed up where I was living in Morgantown 6 months ago. She said she was Michael's mother-in-law and wanted to help our family." Talia took a sip of water. "At first I thought it was some kind of scam, but she showed me pictures of Anna that could only have come from someone who really knew her." David felt a pang in his heart, imagining Eleanor searching for this woman alone, carrying the weight of such huge secrets. And she offered to help just like that? She said she wanted to right a past wrong, that she had abandoned her own son a long time ago and didn't want the same thing to happen to her granddaughter. Talia looked directly at David. "She talked a lot about you. She said you were a good man, but she was afraid of how you would react to the truth." "What truth exactly?" "About Michael being her son, about having hidden it from you for so long." Anna, who had remained quiet during the conversation, suddenly tugged on Talia's blouse. "Mommy, who is Mr. David? Why is he crying?" The innocent question silenced everyone in the room. How could they explain such a complex situation to a 4-year-old child? Talia knelt beside her daughter. "Anna, remember I always said you had a big family, but they were far away?" The girl nodded. "Mr. David he's your grandfather. Your daddy Michael's daddy. Anna's eyes widened. I have a grandpa. David felt tears well up again. Yes, little one. You have a grandpa who didn't even know you existed, but who already loves you very much. And where is my daddy Michael? Does he know I have a grandpa? The question made everyone uncomfortable. Herman shifted in his chair. Mr. Sinclair, I think it's time for you to meet Michael. He needs to know about all of this. Where is he now? Talia asked anxiously. In Morgantown, working at John Carter's garage. He doesn't know anything about you being back. Nor about Eleanor passing away, Carmen added sadly. David stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Let's go there. I need to meet my son, and he needs to know about all of this. I'm going with you, Talia said quickly. Michael will be very confused if he doesn't see me with Anna. And I'm going too, Anna said, as if it were obvious. I want to meet my daddy Michael again. The drive to Morgantown was tense and silent. David drove his car while mentally processing everything he had discovered in the last few hours. Talia was in the passenger seat, visibly nervous, and Anna slept in the back, emotionally exhausted. Talia, David said after an hour on the road, I need to know, did you really come back for Anna, or is there something more? She sighed deeply. I came back for her, yes, but also because Eleanor helped me realize I was running from the problem instead of facing it. What problem? I also had a gambling addiction, Mr. Sinclair. Online games. That's how the debt started. Her voice was almost a whisper. Michael didn't know. He thought it was just his bets that got us into that mess. And now? Now I've been clean for 4 months. Eleanor paid for me to go to a private treatment center in Pittsburgh. She gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. When they arrived at John Carter's garage, they found a tall, dark-haired young man working under an old car. His clothes were stained with grease, and he was whistling a country song as he worked. Michael, Talia called out hesitantly. The young man rolled out from under the car, and when he saw Talia, he turned as pale as if he'd seen a ghost. The screwdriver he was holding fell to the ground with a metallic clatter. Talia, you came back? She nodded, tears in her eyes. I came back, Michael, and I brought our daughter. It was then that Michael saw Anna, who had woken up during the trip and was now observing everything with curiosity. The young man stood up slowly, as if afraid it was just a dream. Anna? His voice came out hoarse. Daddy Michael? The girl took a few hesitant steps toward him. Michael knelt, opening his arms, and Anna ran to hug him. The reunion between father and daughter was emotional, with Michael crying openly as he hugged the girl he hadn't seen in 2 years. I missed you so much, my princess, he murmured. Me too, Daddy, but now I have a grandpa too. Michael looked over Anna's head and noticed David for the first time. Who is he? Talia approached, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder. Michael, there are some things you need to know about your real family. My real family. What are you talking about? Your biological father isn't who you think he is, Talia said gently. And your mother? Your biological mother just passed away last week. Michael stood up slowly, still holding Anna. I don't understand. David took a step forward, his heart pounding. Michael, my name is David Sinclair. Was married to your mother, Eleanor, and until this morning, I didn't know you existed. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the wind rustling the trees around the garage. Michael looked from David to Talia, trying to process the information. That's impossible, he murmured. My adoptive parents told me my biological mother was very young and couldn't raise me. She was 17 when you were born, David explained, and apparently she spent the last 25 years regretting giving you up. For adoption. Michael sat on a nearby stool, Anna still in his arms. And she died on a Friday night coming back from a meeting. Car accident. What meeting? David looked at Talia, who nodded encouragingly. A meeting with you. She had arranged to meet you the following Saturday to tell you the whole truth and try to reconcile with you. Michael remained silent for several minutes, processing the devastating revelation. Anna played with the buttons on his work shirt, oblivious to the emotional storm unfolding around her. A meeting with me? Michael repeated finally, his voice thick with disbelief. She was going to look for me after all these years. She had been preparing for it for months, David explained, sitting on a nearby wooden crate. She hired an investigator, located you, found out about Anna. She wanted to do things right this time. Do things right, Michael laughed bitterly. 25 years later. Talia approached him, touching his hand gently. Michael, she also helped me when I was at rock bottom. She paid for my treatment, gave me hope of coming back to you. She wasn't a bad person. Then why did she abandon me? The pain in Michael's voice was palpable. Why did she choose to marry him and never look for me? David felt the weight of guilt, even knowing he had no direct responsibility for what had happened. Michael, she was very young when you were born, and I didn't know anything. If I had known, I would have insisted that she bring you into our family. Would you really? The direct question made David hesitate. Would he? How would a 27-year-old man react to discovering his 17-year-old wife had a baby from another relationship? I don't know, David admitted honestly. But I wish I had had the chance to try. Michael stood up, putting Anna on the ground. And now, what do you expect from me? That I pretend we're a happy family? We don't expect anything, David said. We just wanted you to know the truth, and for you to meet your daughter who was in an orphanage because we all failed her. Anna tugged on Michael's pants. Daddy, Michael, why are you mad? Michael bent down to her level. Daddy's not mad at you, princess. I could never be mad at you. So you're mad at Grandpa David? The child's simple question cut through all the tension in the air. Michael looked at David, seeing not a stranger, but a man who seemed as lost and confused as he was. No, my love. Daddy's just, surprised. It's a lot of new things to understand. At that moment, a middle-aged man approached the garage. It was John Carter, the owner, who had gone out for lunch and returned to find this unusual scene. Michael, is everything okay here? He asked, noticing the tension in the air. John, this is my family, Michael said, as if testing how the words sounded. My wife, Talia, my daughter Anna, and my father, David. John Carter looked surprised, glancing from one to the other. I didn't know you had a family, Michael. I didn't know either, Michael interrupted. It's a long story. John observed the situation for a moment before addressing David. Sir, from your accent and your clothes, you're not from around here. I'm from Charleston. I'm in the mining business. Mining? John perked up. I've always been interested in that industry. My grandfather worked in a coal mine here in West Virginia back in the 60s. The Appalachian Coal Company, David said automatically. I know the history of that operation well. Exactly. So you know the sector. Michael watched the interaction, noticing how his biological father transformed when he talked about work. There was a confidence there, an expertise that commanded natural respect. Michael is an excellent mechanic, John said to David. One of the best I've ever had. Hard-working, honest, good with people. I'm sure he is, David replied, looking at Michael with something that could be pride. Daddy, Michael, Anna interrupted, I'm hungry. Talia knelt beside her daughter. What do you want to eat, love? A hamburger and fries. Michael smiled, the first genuine smile since this whole situation began. There's a good diner nearby. We can talk on the way." The walk to the diner was silent, but not tense. Anna walked in the middle, holding Michael's and Talia's hands, while David walked a little behind, observing the family dynamic that was forming. At the diner, they sat at a table near the window. Anna attacked her hamburger with enthusiasm, while the adults sipped their sodas and tried to navigate the extraordinary situation. "Michael," David began carefully, "I want you to know that I have no expectations of you. I don't expect you to call me Dad or pretend we have a relationship we haven't built. Then what do you want? To get to know you, to know who you are, what you like, what your dreams are." David paused. "And to help, if you'll let me." "Help how?" "Financially, for starters. I know you have outstanding debts." Michael stiffened. "I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's family responsibility." David took a deep breath. "Eleanor left a considerable amount, and frankly, part of that money should have been yours a long time ago. She left money for me. She did. $50,000 in an account that was to be transferred to you when she told you the truth about our family." Talia almost choked on her soda. $50,000. "To pay off your debts and give Anna a decent life," David explained. "She researched your financial situation and calculated the necessary amount." Michael fell silent, nervously fidgeting with his napkin. "That would solve all my problems." "But it wouldn't solve our main problem," David said, "which is how to rebuild a family that never knew it existed." "Grandpa David," Anna said suddenly, "do you have a big house?" "I do, little one. With a yard to play in? With a yard and a pool." Anna's eyes lit up. "Can I visit your house?" David looked at Michael and Talia, hoping for some kind of signal. "If your parents let you, we can all go," Anna exclaimed. "Daddy Michael, Mommy Talia, me and Grandpa David." The child's innocent suggestion created an awkward moment. How could they explain to her that things weren't that simple? "Anna," Michael said gently, "Grandpa David lives far away, and we live here. But why, if we're family, can't we live close by?" Once again, the child's simple logic exposed the adult's complexities. David felt his heart ache as he realized how easily Anna accepted the idea of having a large, united family. "Michael," he said impulsively, "what if you all moved to Charleston? I can offer you a job at my company, a better position than a mechanic if you're interested." "What kind of position?" "Fleet maintenance supervisor. We have over 30 heavy vehicles that need constant care. The salary would be 3 times what you earn here." Talia looked at Michael with hope in her eyes. A new city, a new beginning, far from all the problems of the past. "Why would you do that?" Michael asked suspiciously. "Because you're my son," David said simply. "And because Anna is my granddaughter, and because maybe it's time for all of us to have a second chance." Michael looked out the window, watching the simple life of Morgantown unfold on the street. Then he looked at Anna, who was watching him with expectation, and at Talia, who clearly wanted to accept the offer. "I need time to think," he said finally. "Of course. But Michael..." "Yes?" "Regardless of your decision about moving, I want you to know that you have a family now, and we'll be here no matter what." 3 weeks had passed since that meeting at the diner, and Michael still hadn't given a definitive answer about moving to Charleston. During that time, David made a point of visiting them every weekend, trying to gradually build a relationship with the son he had discovered so late. That Friday, David arrived at the small rented house where Michael, Talia, and Anna lived in Morgantown. It was a simple place, but clean and cozy, which Talia had managed to furnish with the money Eleanor had sent her in the last few months. "Grandpa David," Anna shouted, running to hug him as soon as he got out of the car. "Hi, my princess," he said, picking her up. How was your week? I learned to write my name at school, she said proudly. Want to see? Of course I do. As Anna ran to get her notebook, Michael appeared at the door, still dressed in his garage uniform. His expression was more serious than usual. David, we need to talk, he said without preamble. Of course, did something happen? Maybe. Talia is inside, but before we go in, I need to tell you something I found out. David felt a chill in his stomach. What is it? Michael looked around, making sure Anna wasn't listening. A guy showed up at the garage yesterday looking for me. Said he was a friend of Eleanor's and had important information about her. What kind of information? He said Eleanor didn't die by accident. The world seemed to spin around David. What do you mean? According to him, she was being followed on the night of the accident. Someone wanted to prevent the meeting she had scheduled. With me? That's impossible. Who is this man? Why did he only show up now? His name is Robert Fisher. Says he's a private investigator just like Herman, and that Eleanor had hired him too, but for something different. For what? To find out who was threatening Talia before she ran away. David sat on the front step, feeling his legs weaken. Michael, are you sure this man is reliable? He brought proof, photos, documents, audio recordings. Michael sat next to him. David, I think Eleanor discovered something very dangerous, and it cost her her life. At that moment, Talia appeared at the door, holding Anna by the hand. Her expression was pale and worried. Did Michael tell you about Robert? She asked. He just told me. Talia, do you know this man? I do, she said softly. He was the one who warned me to leave town 2 years ago. He said some people weren't happy with the investigations Michael was doing into his own debts. What investigations? Michael sighed heavily. I found out I hadn't gotten into debt alone. Someone was using my name to place online bets without my knowledge. When I started investigating, the threats began. And you never told me this, David said, incredulous, because I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault for being careless with my personal information. Anna tugged on David's shirt. Grandpa, why is everyone sad? We're not sad, dear, David lied, forcing a smile. We're just talking about grown-up things. Can I play in the yard? You can, Talia said, clearly wanting to keep the girl away from the conversation. But don't leave the yard, okay? After Anna had moved away, the three went inside the house and sat in the small living room. Robert Fisher was waiting, a man of about 50, thin, and with the sharp eyes of someone used to observing details. Mr. Sinclair, Robert said, standing to greet him. I'm very sorry for your wife's loss. Robert, Michael told me a few things, but I need to hear it from you. What exactly did you discover? Robert opened a folder and spread several photographs on the coffee table. Your wife hired me 6 months ago to investigate who was behind Michael's fake debts. What we discovered went far beyond what we imagined. Beyond how? There was a money laundering scheme using the identities of vulnerable people. In the region, Michael was just one of the victims. David examined the photos, seeing images of documents and recorded conversations. And Eleanor found out who was behind it? She did. And when she tried to report it, she started receiving threats. Robert played a recording on his cell phone. This is one of the calls she received. The voice coming from the phone was distorted but clearly threatening. Mrs. Sinclair, I suggest you stay away from this matter. Your family could suffer the consequences. My family, David repeated, horrified. They threatened me too. Not directly, but they mentioned they knew about your mining operations and that it would be easy to cause accidents at your work sites. Talia began to cry silently. That's why she insisted so much that I come back. She wanted to gather the whole family to protect us together. Protect us from whom? Michael asked. Robert hesitated before answering. From Chief Morris Slate and the city comptroller, Evan Cross. They were using the local tax system to create false identities and move money from illegal activities. A police chief? David stood up abruptly. Are you telling me a police chief was involved in this and murdered my wife? I can't prove it was murder, but the evidence suggests the accident was staged. Eleanor's car was found, with signs that another vehicle forced it off the road. Michael stood up too, starting to pace the room. And now, what do we do with this information? This is too dangerous, Talia said. If they killed Eleanor for knowing too much, what will they do to us? That's why I need you to leave the area, Robert said. Mr. Sinclair's invitation to move to Charleston could be your salvation. But what about you? Michael asked. Aren't you in danger too? I am, but I have experience dealing with situations like this, and I have contacts in other cities who can help me. At that moment, Anna ran in through the back door. Mommy, there's a strange car parked on the street. The man was looking at our house. Everyone froze. Robert stood up quickly and went to the front window, peeking discreetly through the curtain. You need to get out of here now, he said urgently. It's an official police car, but it's not a routine visit. How do you know? David asked. Because they've been waiting for 5 minutes without getting out of the car. They're watching the house. Michael picked Anna up. What do we do? Leave through the back, Robert instructed. Mr. Sinclair, where's your car? In front of the house. Forget the car. We'll walk to my vehicle, which is 2 blocks away. But our things, Talia began. Leave everything. Your lives are worth more than any object. As they prepared to leave, Anna looked around the only house she knew as home. Mummy, are we coming back? Talia hugged her tight, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, my love. But we'll stay together, no matter where we go. And my toys? Grandpa David will buy you new toys, Michael said, trying to keep his voice calm. Promise. David looked at his granddaughter, realizing that in just a few weeks she had become the most important person in his life. I promise, Princess. Grandpa promises. As they left through the back door, Robert guided them through a path between the neighboring houses, always looking back to make sure they weren't being followed. Everyone's heart was pounding, and David realized that his life had changed forever in that moment. The drive to Charleston was tense and silent. Robert drove his black Corolla on secondary roads, avoiding the main highways where they could be easily tracked. In the back seat, Michael held a sleeping Anna, while Talia looked nervously out the window. David was in the passenger seat, trying to process how his life had turned into a desperate escape in a matter of hours. Robert, he said softly so as not to wake Anna, are you sure we're not overreacting? Maybe those cops were just on a routine patrol. Mr. Sinclair, I've been in this business for 15 years. I know the difference between a routine visit and a surveillance operation, Robert replied, checking the rearview mirror once more. And considering Eleanor died a week after discovering compromising information about them, we can't take any chances. But running away like this, it seems like we're admitting guilt for something. We're not running away, Michael corrected. We're protecting ourselves. There's a difference. When they finally arrived in Charleston, it was almost midnight. The city was sleeping peacefully with only a few lights on in the downtown houses. David guided Robert to his house, a large building in the city's most affluent neighborhood, surrounded by a high wall and an electronic gate. Wow, Talia whispered upon seeing the property. It's huge. Eleanor always wanted a big house, David said melancholically, opening the gate. She said one day we'd have children and would need the space. Anna woke up when the car stopped in the garage. Are we at Grandpa's house yet? We're here, Princess, Michael said, picking her up. This is going to be our new home for a while. Forever. We'll see, he replied, avoiding making promises he might not be able to keep. The house inside was elegant but cold. expensive furniture, impeccable decor, but few signs of family life. It was the house of a couple who had given up on having children and had taken refuge in material comfort. "There are 5 bedrooms," David explained, turning on the living room lights. "You can choose whichever you want. And there's a playroom that Eleanor set up, well, for visitors who never came." "A whole room of toys?" Anna's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I can show you tomorrow," David promised. "Now it's time to sleep." Robert declined the invitation to spend the night, saying he needed to get back to Morgantown to gather more evidence and check if Michael's house was being watched. Before leaving, he handed a card to David. "This is the number of a lawyer in Pittsburgh, Dr. Marcus Riley. If anything happens to me, look for him. He has copies of Eleanor's entire investigation." "Robert," David said, "how can I thank you for helping us? Your wife paid me very well to protect this family. I'm just doing my job." After Robert left, the reality of the situation fell upon everyone. They were in a strange house, fleeing from dangerous people, trying to form a family that had only known each other for 3 weeks. "Daddy Michael," Anna said as Talia prepared her for bed in the guest room, "why did we have to run away from home?" Michael exchanged a look with Talia before answering. "Sometimes grown-ups have to solve complicated problems, and until we solve them, it's better to stay in a safe place." "Is Grandpa David's house safe?" "It is, my love." "Then it's okay," she said naturally, as if a child's simple logic could solve all the adults' fears. After putting Anna to bed, the 3 adults gathered in the kitchen to talk. David made coffee while trying to organize his thoughts. "Michael, I need to know, do you really want to stay here, or are you just accepting the situation because you have no choice?" Michael stirred his coffee distractedly. "Honestly, I don't know. This is all so new to me. A month ago, I was a single mechanic with debts. Now I find out I have a rich father, my wife is back, and we're on the run from corrupt thugs. And how do you feel about me?" "Confused," Michael admitted. "You seem like a good man, and it's obvious you love Anna. But I can't just ignore that I grew up without a father for 25 years. "Michael," Talia intervened gently, "David didn't know you existed. It's not his fault." "I know, but that doesn't make things any easier." David nodded, understanding the emotional complexity Michael was facing. "I don't expect you to accept me as a father immediately, or ever. I just want the chance to get to know you and help in any way I can." "And the job you offered, is it still on the table?" "Of course. In fact, now more than ever. You need financial stability, and I need people I can trust working with me." "People you can trust." David sighed. "Michael, if Robert is right about the corruption scheme, it's possible it extends beyond Morgantown. I need to review all my company's contracts, make sure I'm not being used the same way you were." The next morning, Anna woke up early and explored the house with a child's natural curiosity. When she found the playroom, she shouted with joy, waking up the whole house. "Grandpa David, Daddy Michael, Mommy, come see!" The room was a child's dream. Dolls, cars, building blocks, a 2-story dollhouse, and even a small table with little chairs for a tea party. "Eleanor bought all this over the years," David explained, seeing Anna's amazed expression. "Always hoping that one day we'd have children visit." "As if she knew you would come," Talia said emotionally. "Maybe she did," Michael murmured, watching Anna play with a doll that seemed to have been chosen specifically for her. During breakfast, David's phone rang. It was Robert, and his voice was tense. "David, we have a problem. Michael's house was ransacked during the night, and I found out that Chief Morris has issued a search warrant for you." "A search warrant? Why?" "They're claiming you're involved in the money laundering scheme. Apparently, someone planted evidence in the house after you left." Michael, who was listening to the conversation, turned pale. "They're trying to frame us. Exactly, Robert confirmed over the phone. And there's more. The chief is coming to Charleston today. Apparently someone informed them that you're there. How is that possible? Only you knew where we were, David said. It wasn't me, but it's possible they tracked someone's cell phone or have informants here in Charleston too. The realization that they weren't even safe in David's own house was like a bucket of cold water. Anna continued playing, oblivious to the approaching danger. What do we do now? Talia asked. We're going to the lawyer in Pittsburgh, David decided. Dr. Marcus Riley. If Robert trusts him, he's our best chance. But what about the company? And your life here? Michael, Anna is more important than any business. If we need to start all over again somewhere else, we'll do it. As they prepared for another escape, David looked at the house where he had lived with Eleanor for so many years. He was leaving behind not just a property but a whole life. But for the first time since losing his wife, he felt he had a clear purpose: to protect the family he had gained so unexpectedly. Grandpa, Anna said, holding her new doll, are we taking her too? Of course, Princess. We'll take everything that's important to you. So we're taking Daddy Michael and Mommy Talia too. Especially them, David promised, realizing that Anna had perfectly summarized what really mattered. Dr. Marcus Riley's office was in downtown Pittsburgh in an old but well-maintained commercial building. When David, Michael, Talia, and Anna arrived, it was mid-afternoon, and the lawyer was waiting for them with a worried expression. Robert called me this morning and told me about the situation, Dr. Riley said. A 60-year-old man with completely white hair and shrewd eyes. Unfortunately, I have bad news. Worse than what we already have? Michael asked, sitting in one of the leather armchairs in the room. Robert was arrested this morning in Morgantown. They claim he was obstructing an official investigation. The silence that followed was heavy. Anna, who was playing with her doll in a smaller chair, sensed the tension and stopped playing. But he has all the evidence, David said. The documents, the recordings. Exactly. And now they have access to all of it, Dr. Riley replied. Fortunately, Robert was smart. Before he was arrested, he managed to send me copies of all the documentation. And what does this evidence show exactly? Talia asked. Dr. Riley opened a thick folder on his desk. It shows that the scheme is much bigger than we imagined. It's not just about money laundering. They were embezzling federal funds intended for social programs in the region. Federal funds? Yes, money for building schools, health clinics, housing programs. Millions of dollars that never reach their proper destination. Michael leaned forward. And how did my name get involved in this? They needed real identities to create fictitious companies. They used data from people with financial problems, like you, to open bank accounts and move the money. How many people were harmed? According to the records Robert obtained, at least 50 families in the region, all artificially indebted to serve as cover for the illegal operations. David felt a growing anger, and my wife discovered all this. Eleanor was very intelligent. When she started investigating Michael's situation, she realized there was a pattern. Other people in the same situation, all from the same region, all with similar debts. That's why she hired Robert in addition to Herman. Yes, Herman investigated the family side, looking for Michael and Anna. Robert investigated the criminal side, trying to find out who was behind the fake debts. Anna approached David, climbing onto his lap. Grandpa, why is everyone talking about money? It's grown-up stuff, Princess. Nothing you need to worry about. But you all seem worried. Dr. Riley smiled at the girl. You know what I think? I think Anna should check out my playroom while we talk about these boring, grown-up things. You have a playroom? Anna asked, interested. I do. My secretary has a little girl your age, and we set up a special corner for when she comes to work. Want to see? After Anna left with the secretary, Dr. Riley returned to the main topic. Now, let's get down to business. You are in real danger, but we also have an opportunity. What opportunity? Michael asked. The evidence Robert collected is enough to bring down the entire network, but we need to take it to the right authorities, not the local police who are involved in the scheme. What authorities? The FBI, the Department of Justice. There's a prosecutor in D.C. who has been investigating corruption in social programs for years. He would be very interested in this evidence. David brightened. So we can report everything and end this persecution? You can, but there's a risk. You'll have to testify, and that means exposing yourselves publicly. What kind of exposure? Newspapers, television. The case will be huge. Embezzlement of federal funds, police corruption, a network that harmed dozens of families. The media will want to talk to the victims. Talia turned pale. Does that mean we'll never have peace again? That Anna will grow up being known as the daughter of corruption victims? Not necessarily, Dr. Riley said. The media's interest is intense but fleeting. After a few months, you could rebuild your lives normally. And if we choose not to testify, Michael asked, then you'll be on the run forever, because without victim testimonies, the evidence alone isn't enough to prosecute everyone involved. At that moment, the office phone rang. Dr. Riley answered, and his expression hardened during the conversation. That was a contact of mine at the FBI, he said after hanging up. Chief Morris and 2 men are in Pittsburgh. Apparently they managed to track you here. How's that possible? David asked. Probably through your credit card. Did you use it to get gas on the way? We did, Michael confirmed. We didn't think of that. We have to get out of here, Talia said, standing up nervously. Calm down, Dr. Riley said. My building has a back exit, and I've already alerted the FBI. They'll want to talk to you, but as protected witnesses, not as suspects. Protected witnesses? An official program. You'll be under federal protection until the trial of those involved. New temporary identity, a safe place to live, all paid for by the government. The idea of changing their identities frightened everyone. How would they explain that to Anna? Dr. Riley, David said, is there another option? There is. You could leave the country. I have contacts who can help you settle in Canada or Mexico, but that would mean abandoning everything and starting from scratch. And Anna? She would grow up far from the United States without knowing her own culture. It's a big sacrifice, the lawyer admitted. At that moment, Anna ran back into the room carrying a new doll. Look what the lady gave me, it's a talking bear. Seeing the girl's simple joy, David made a decision. Dr. Riley, we want to enter the protection program. We'll testify against them. Are you sure there's no turning back once we start the process? I'm sure. Anna deserves to grow up in a country where justice works, and if our testimony can help other families in the same situation, it's our duty to do it. Michael looked at Talia, who nodded. We agree, but we need guarantees about Anna's safety. You'll have all the necessary guarantees, Dr. Riley promised. Now let's get out of here through the back. There's an FBI car waiting to take you to a safe location. As they prepared to leave the office, Anna sensed the tension again. Are we moving again? Yes, Princess, David said, picking her up. But this time it's going to be different. Different how? This time we're going to stay together until everything is resolved. And then we can live in peace. Forever? Forever, he promised, hoping he could keep that promise. When they went out the back door of the building, they found 2 federal agents waiting. They were serious but kind professionals, especially with Anna. Don't worry, one of them said. From now on, you're under our protection. No one is going to hurt you. As they got into the armored vehicle, David looked at his unlikely family, a son he had discovered a month ago, a daughter-in-law he barely knew, and a granddaughter who had become the reason for his existence. It wasn't the family he had dreamed of, but it was the family he had chosen to protect with his own life. The safe house was in a small town in rural Virginia, hidden between mountains and cornfields. It was a simple but comfortable rural property with 3 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a yard where Anna could play under the discreet surveillance of federal agents. 2 weeks had passed since they entered the protection program, and a routine was beginning to set in. Michael helped with chores on the property, Talia took care of the house and Anna, and David spent his days reviewing documents with the federal prosecutors who visited them regularly. "Daddy Michael," Anna said one Saturday morning while playing in the yard, "why? Can't I go to school like the other kids?" The question hit Michael like a stab. For 2 weeks, Anna had been isolated from the outside world, with only adults for company, and she was starting to miss being around other children. "It's just temporary, Princess," he replied, crouching beside her. "Soon you'll be able to go back to school." "When?" "When the good cops arrest the bad cops," he said, using the simplified explanation they had created for her. "And how long will that take?" Michael looked at David, who was sitting on the porch, reading a newspaper. It was a question they all asked themselves daily, but one no one had an answer to. That afternoon, federal prosecutor Dr. Patricia Mendez arrived with important news. She was a woman in her 40s, determined and competent, who had personally taken on the case after seeing the magnitude of the corruption involved. "We have good news and bad news," she said, sitting at the table in the living room with everyone gathered. "The good news is that we've obtained additional evidence that proves the scheme. The bad news is that we've discovered there are more people involved than we thought." "More people?" David asked. "Chief Morris and Comptroller Evan Cross weren't alone. There are at least 3 mayors from the region involved, a state representative, and several companies that served as fronts." Talia turned pale. "Does this mean we'll be here longer?" "Unfortunately, yes. The trial could take up to a year to happen." "A year?" Michael stood up nervously. "Dr. Mendez, we can't stay hidden for a whole year. Anna needs to go to school, have a normal life." "I understand your concern, but—" "No, you don't," Michael interrupted, with an anger that surprised everyone. "You go home every night, sleep in your own bed, live your normal life. We're trapped here like criminals when we're the victims." "Michael," David said calmly, "she's trying to help us." "Is she, or is she just using our suffering to build her career?" The accusation created an awkward silence. Dr. Mendez took a deep breath before responding. "Mr. Perry, I understand your frustration, but I want you to know that this case is personal for me too. My brother was a victim of a similar scheme in another state. He lost his house, his job, and never managed to recover financially." The revelation changed the tone of the conversation. Michael sat down again, clearly regretting his outburst. "I'm sorry," he murmured. It's hard to explain to a 4-year-old why she can't have a normal life." "You don't need to apologize. In fact, I have a proposal that might help with that situation." "What proposal?" Talia asked. "There's a rural school here in the region that serves farmers' children. It's small, only 15 kids, but it has excellent teachers. Anna could attend using a fictitious name." "Is it safe?" David asked. "Our agents did a full background check. All the school staff passed a security investigation, and the community is very tight-knit. They don't have frequent contact with larger cities." Anna, who was playing on the floor, looked up when she heard the word school. "Can I go to school, Mummy?" Talia looked at Michael, then at David. "What do you think?" "I think we should try," David said. "Anna needs normalcy, even if it's temporary." "I agree," Michael said. "But on one condition. I want to personally meet all the teachers and staff before we leave her there." "Of course, I can arrange a visit for tomorrow." The next morning, they all went together to visit the Santa Rita Rural School. It was a simple 2-room building, surrounded by trees and with a small but well-kept playground. The principal, Mrs. Margaret, was a 60-year-old woman who had dedicated her life to rural education. "So this is Anna," she said, crouching to be at the girl's height. "What a beautiful name." "Actually, during the time she studies here, we're going to call her Anna," Dr. Mendez explained, "for security reasons." Of course. Anna is a beautiful name too." "Why can't I use my real name?" Anna asked. Mrs. Margaret, who had been briefed on the general situation but not the details, answered naturally. "Sometimes it's fun to have a secret name, like in adventure movies. Do you want to be an adventurer?" Anna's eyes lit up. "I do." "Then Anna is your adventurer name." The simplicity of the explanation worked perfectly. Anna spent the rest of the visit exploring the school with enthusiasm, especially interested in the small library and the garden where the children learned about plants. "She'll adapt well here," said the teacher in charge of Anna's class, a young woman named Lucy. "We have several children her age, and they are all very welcoming to new students." When they left the school, Anna couldn't stop talking about everything she had seen. For the first time in weeks, she seemed like a truly happy and excited child. "When can I start?" she asked. "On Monday," Dr. Mendez replied, "if your parents agree." "We agree," Michael said immediately, seeing his daughter's joy. That night, after Anna had fallen asleep, the three adults talked about the new phase that was beginning. "It's strange," Talia said, "how something as simple as going to school can feel like such a huge victory." "It's because we're valuing things we used to take for granted," David observed. "Freedom, normalcy, security." "Do you think we'll ever be able to have a normal life again?" Michael asked. "I don't know if we'll go back to the life we had," David replied. "But we can build a new life, a good life." "How?" "As a real family. Not just people who met by chance, but people who choose to stay together." Michael was quiet for a moment. "David, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "When you showed up that afternoon at the garage, I was planning to give up on everything. The debts, the loneliness, the guilt for losing Anna. I was thinking of leaving Morgantown and starting over somewhere else, alone. And now? Now I know it was worth enduring all the hardships, because they led me to you." Talia approached Michael, taking his hand. "For me, too. If I hadn't gone through everything I went through, I would never have valued what really matters." "Which is?" "Family. It doesn't matter how it's formed. It doesn't matter if it's traditional or not. What matters is the love and commitment to take care of each other." David felt tears in his eyes. Eleanor would be happy to know we managed to find each other, that her sacrifice wasn't in vain. "I think she knows," Talia said softly. "I think she's watching over us, even though she's not here." In the middle of the night, David woke up to the sound of Anna talking to herself in her room. He got up silently and went to check, finding her sitting up in bed, hugging her doll. "Who are you talking to, Princess?" he asked softly. "To Grandma Eleanor," she replied naturally. "I was telling her about my new school." David's heart ached. "And what did you tell her?" "That I have a big family now, and I'm going to an adventurer's school, and that you're the coolest grandpa in the world." David sat on the edge of the bed. "And did she say anything back?" "She said she's very happy because she managed to bring our family together, even from heaven." At that moment, David understood that Anna, with her innocence and childish wisdom, had found a way to keep Eleanor present in their lives, turning loss into a spiritual connection. 6 months had passed since Anna started attending the Santa Rita Rural School, and life in the safe house had found an almost normal rhythm. Anna, now known as Anna to her classmates, had become one of the most popular kids in her class, always inventing games and creative stories that delighted the other children. That Tuesday morning, Dr. Mendez arrived earlier than usual with a different expression on her face. It wasn't worry like the other times, but something that seemed like a mix of expectation and caution. "We have important news," she said, sitting at the kitchen table where everyone was having breakfast. "The trial has been set for next month." "Finally," Michael sighed. "Does that mean we can leave here soon?" "It means we're nearing the end of the process. But there's something else you need to know." David stopped stirring his coffee. "What else?" "Robert was released yesterday. All charges against him were dropped when we discovered that Chief Morris had forged evidence to frame him." "Robert is free?" Talia asked excitedly. "Can I talk to him?" "You can, but carefully. He's still being monitored by the criminals, so any contact has to be through our official channels." "And how is he?" David wanted to know. "Shaken, but determined to see justice served. In fact, he brought additional information that he discovered while in prison." "What information?" Dr. Mendez opened a folder she had brought. "Robert found out that there are other families being protected in programs similar to yours. The scheme was much bigger than we imagined and affected people in at least 5 different states." Michael leaned forward. "How many families?" 123 confirmed families so far, all victims of the same type of fraud you suffered." "My God," Talia murmured. "And are they all in hiding?" "Most managed to resolve the situation in other ways, but 15 families are in protection programs like you." At that moment, Anna ran into the kitchen, already dressed in her school uniform, a blue skirt and white blouse that Talia had sewn following the model of the other children. "Mommy, I forgot to tell you yesterday. Miss Lucy said we're going to do a play for Mother's Day." The mention of Mother's Day created an awkward moment of silence. Anna didn't know that her grandmother Eleanor had passed away, only that she lived far away and that maybe one day they could visit her. "That's great, my love," Talia said, forcing enthusiasm. "And what play are you performing?" "It's about a family that gets lost and then finds each other again. I'm going to be the little daughter who helps everyone stay together." The irony of the situation was not lost on the adults. Dr. Mendez smiled, realizing how life sometimes imitated art in a touching way. "And do you already know what you're going to say in the play?" David asked. "I do. I'm going to say that even when families go through hard times, if they truly love each other, they always manage to stay together in the end." After Anna left for school, accompanied by the security agent disguised as a driver, Dr. Mendez continued the conversation about the case's developments. "There's something else you need to decide," she said. "When the trial is over, you will have a few options for the future." "What options?" David asked. "First option, go back to Charleston and resume your previous life. Second option, settle in a new city with support from the protection program. Third option, stay here in this region, which you already know." "And which do you recommend?" Michael asked. "It depends on what you want to build as a family. Charleston offers financial stability through David's businesses, but it also brings painful memories. A new city would be a complete fresh start, but without a support network. Staying here would mean keeping the simple life you've built, but it would limit professional opportunities." Talia looked out the window, watching Anna play in the schoolyard in the distance. "What matters is what's best for her." "I agree," Michael said. "Anna is happy here. She has friends, likes the school, feels safe." "But what about you?" Dr. Mendez asked. "Are you happy here?" David reflected for a moment. "I'm happier than I've been in the last 5 years. It's not about the place, it's about having a family." "Michael, Talia?" "For me too," Michael said. "Before all this happened, I defined myself by my job, my salary, my social position. Here I've learned that I can be happy just being a father and a husband. And I've learned that I can be strong when I need to protect the people I love," Talia added. "Where we live is secondary." That afternoon, a surprise visitor arrived at the safe house. Herman Roth, the investigator who had started the whole family discovery, showed up accompanied by two federal agents. "Herman!" David exclaimed, hugging the man who had been instrumental in reuniting his family. "How did you find us?" "Dr. Mendez authorized me to visit you. I wanted to see you in person and bring some important things." "What things?" Herman opened a suitcase and took out several carefully wrapped objects. "I managed to retrieve some of your personal belongings before the houses were sealed by the investigation. For Michael, he brought a childhood photo album that had been left in the house in Morgantown. For Talia, a bracelet from her mother that she had left behind in her escape. For David, some business documents and, most importantly, Eleanor's wedding ring. "I found this in the dresser drawer in your bedroom," Herman said, handing the ring to David. "I thought you'd want to have it." David held the ring with reverence, feeling the emotional weight the small object carried. "Thank you, Herman. This means a lot to me. And there's something for Anna, too." Herman took out a small box and from it a gold chain with a heart-shaped pendant. Eleanor had bought this to give to her granddaughter when she met her. It was in a drawer with a note. "For Anna, with all the love from the grandma who always loved her, even from afar." Everyone was moved by the discovery. Even in the uncertainty of the future, Eleanor had thought to give something special to her granddaughter. "We'll keep it to give to her when it's appropriate to tell her about her grandmother," Talia said. "Actually," Herman said, "it might be time to tell her. Anna is older, more mature, and she has the right to know the story of the one who fought so hard to bring you all together." When Anna returned from school that day, she found the house filled with a different atmosphere. It wasn't sadness, but an intense emotion she couldn't identify. "Why does everyone seem different today?" she asked, observing the adults' faces. "Anna," David said, crouching to be at her level, "we have something important to tell you, about your family." "What about my family? You are my family." "We are. But you also had a very special grandma who loved you very much, but who went to heaven before she could meet you in person." Anna processed the information with the seriousness of an intelligent child. "How did she know she loved me if she never saw me?" "Because true love doesn't need time or proximity," Talia explained. "Your grandma Eleanor spent the last years of her life looking for you, to bring our family together." "And did she succeed?" "She did," Michael said, hugging his daughter. "We are all together because of her." "So she was a kind of guardian angel." "Exactly," David said with tears in his eyes. "Your grandma Eleanor was our guardian angel." That night, after Anna fell asleep wearing for the first time the chain her grandmother had chosen for her, the adults gathered on the porch for a conversation that had become a ritual, planning the future and honoring the past. The day of the trial finally arrived. David, Michael, and Talia woke up before dawn, all with their stomachs in knots from nervousness. Anna, who would be at school as on a normal day to maintain her routine, was still sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the importance of that day for the family's future. "I can't even drink coffee," Talia said, nervously stirring a cup she wasn't drinking. "Me neither," Michael agreed. "It's strange to think that today might be the last day of this hidden life." David watched from the window as the federal agents prepared to escort them to Washington, D.C., where the trial would take place. 3 armored cars were strategically positioned around the property. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Dr. Mendez asked, having arrived early to accompany them. "There's still time to back out and accept a plea deal without public exposure." "No," David said firmly. "We want all the guilty parties to pay for what they did, not just the small fry." "I agree," Michael said. "How many other families suffered what we suffered? They deserve justice too." The trip to D.C. lasted 4 hours, during which the three reviewed their testimonies once more with Dr. Mendez. The courthouse was surrounded by journalists and onlookers, turning what should have been a moment of justice into a kind of public spectacle. "Remember," Dr. Mendez said before they entered the building, "just tell the truth. Don't try to embellish or dramatize anything. The truth is strong enough." Inside the courtroom, David saw for the first time the faces of some of the men who had turned their lives into a nightmare. Chief Morris Slate was a 50-year-old man, seemingly ordinary, who didn't look capable of the atrocities he had committed. Beside him were the comptroller Evan Cross and 2 mayors David didn't know personally. The first to testify was Michael. With a firm but emotional voice, he told how he discovered the fake debts, how his life was destroyed, how he lost his wife and daughter because of the threats. "Had you had problems with gambling before?" the defense attorney asked, trying to discredit his testimony. "Never," Michael replied categorically. "I've never even played the lottery. I don't have a gambling addiction, nor was I aware that my name was being used to move illegal money." "How can you be sure of that?" "Because when I discovered the debts, I made sure to investigate every transaction. They were all made from computers I never used, at times when I was working at the garage with dozens of witnesses." When it was Talia's turn, her voice trembled at first, but she managed to control herself and tell her story clearly. "Why did you run away instead of going to the police?" the same lawyer asked. "Because the people who threatened me were the police themselves," she replied, looking directly at Chief Morris. "They said that if I didn't leave town, my daughter would suffer the consequences." "Do you have proof of these threats?" "I do," Dr. Mendez said, standing up. "Phone recordings that will be presented as evidence." When it was David's turn, he stood up with dignity and walked to the witness stand. His voice came out strong and clear as he swore to tell the truth. "Mr. Sinclair," the federal prosecutor said, "tell the court how you found out about the existence of your son and granddaughter." David recounted the entire story, from meeting Anna at the cemetery to discovering that Eleanor had been murdered for trying to expose the corruption scheme. "Are you sure that your wife was murdered and was not the victim of an accident?" the judge asked. "I'm sure. The technical evidence shows that her car was forced off the road, and she had scheduled a meeting with me to tell me the whole truth the next day." "And what was that truth?" "That she had discovered a corruption scheme that involved embezzlement of federal funds and was harming dozens of innocent families." During the cross-examination, the defense attorney tried to suggest that David was making up the murder story to get a larger settlement. "Mr. Sinclair, don't you find it a bit too convenient that your wife died just before revealing secrets that could financially benefit you?" The question deeply angered David. "Convenient? Are you suggesting it was convenient for me to lose my wife? That it was convenient to discover she had hidden the existence of a son for 15 years of marriage? That it was convenient to have to flee my own city?" "Calm down, Mr. Sinclair," the judge said. "No, Your Honor, I will not be calm in the face of such an insinuation." David turned to Chief Morris. "That man over there killed my wife. He destroyed my son's life. He threatened my 4-year-old granddaughter, and you want me to stay calm?" "Objection!" shouted the defense attorney. "Sustained," the judge said. "Mr. Sinclair, please confine yourself to answering the questions." But David wasn't finished. "I want everyone in this room to know that Eleanor Sinclair was an honest woman who dedicated the last 2 years of her life to correcting past mistakes and protecting a family she didn't even know. She died because she believed in justice. I hope you will honor that belief." The silence that followed was profound. Even the defense attorney seemed affected by David's words. During the recess, Dr. Mendez approached them in the hallway. "You all did very well. The testimonies were convincing and emotional." "And now?" Michael asked. Now we wait for the verdict. It could take a few hours." The hours dragged on slowly. They stayed in a private room at the courthouse, drinking coffee and trying not to think about what would happen if the defendants were acquitted. "If they're acquitted," Talia said, "we'll have to live in hiding forever." "They won't be acquitted," David said with conviction. "The evidence is too clear." "How can you be so sure?" "Because the truth always wins in the end. It may take time, it may be painful, but it always wins." At 5 in the afternoon they were called back to the courtroom. The judge had a serious expression as he began to read the verdict. "In the case file number," he began, and David felt his heart race. "Considering the evidence presented, the testimonies of the victims, and the gravity of the crimes committed, this court finds the accusation against the defendants, Morris Slate, Evan Cross, Robert Machado, and Carlos Ferreira, to be valid." David breathed a sigh of relief. Michael held Talia's hand. "The defendant, Morris Slate, is sentenced to 15 years in a federal prison for racketeering, money laundering, embezzlement, and first-degree murder." When he heard the word murder, David couldn't hold back his tears. Finally, Eleanor's death had been recognized as a crime. The other defendants are sentenced to terms between 8 and 12 years in prison for the crimes of racketeering, money laundering, and embezzlement. When they left the courthouse, it was already evening. The journalists wanted interviews, but they refused them all. They just wanted to go home, to Anna, to the simple life they had built during those difficult months. "It's over," Michael said in the car, still not quite believing it. "It's over," Dr. Mendez confirmed. "You are free to rebuild your lives wherever you want." "And we already know where we want to," David said, thinking of the yard where Anna played, the school where she had friends, the quiet life of the small town that had become their refuge. "We want to stay where we're happy," Talia added, "where we are a family." 2 years after the trial, life in the small Virginia town had transformed into something none of them could have imagined when they fled Morgantown. The house that was once a temporary hideout was now a real home, full of laughter, plants in the garden tended by Talia, and the constant noise of Anna playing with her school friends. David had sold his mining company in Charleston and used the money to buy land in the region, establishing a small agricultural cooperative that employed several local families. Michael had become his partner and operations manager, discovering a passion for sustainable agriculture he never knew he had. "Daddy Michael, look how many tomatoes I picked," shouted Anna, now 6 years old, running through the field with a basket full of bright red tomatoes. "Wow, princess, you're becoming an expert farmer," Michael said, picking her up and spinning her in the air. "Miss Lucy said I can bring tomatoes for all my friends at school." The Santa Rita Rural School had expanded with David's financial help, now serving 40 children and offering education up to the 8th grade. Anna remained one of the most beloved students, known for her contagious joy and boundless creativity. "And where are Grandpa David and Mommy Talia?" Michael asked. "Grandpa is at Mrs. Margaret's house, talking about the school party, and Mommy is in the kitchen, making that cornbread I love." The school party was at the end of the week, celebrating the 2nd anniversary of the school's expansion. It was also an undeclared celebration of the new life the family had built there. When they got home, they found Talia in the kitchen, indeed preparing the famous cornbread that had become her specialty in the region. She had discovered a talent for cooking and now supplied sweets and savories for local events, creating a small income of her own that gave her independence and pride. "How were the fields today?" she asked, kissing Michael and hugging Anna. "Very good. The corn harvest is better than we expected," Michael replied, "and our daughter picked enough tomatoes to feed half the town." "Mommy, can I lick the bowl?" "You can. But then you have to wash your hands for dinner." While Anna delighted in the leftover batter in the bowl, David arrived from the meeting at the school, bringing exciting news. "The county approved our project," he announced, taking off his shoes at the entrance. "We're going to be able to build the community library we planned." "Really?" Talia asked excitedly. "And where will it be?" "On the lot next to the school. It will have a children's section, computers with internet, and rooms for job training courses for the adults in the region." Michael smiled proudly. "Who would have thought that one day I'd be involved in building libraries instead of just fixing cars?" "People change," David observed, "especially when they have reasons to change." "What reasons?" Anna asked, always curious. "Love," David replied simply. "When you love someone, you want to give the best of yourself for that person." "Like Grandma Eleanor did for us?" "Exactly like Grandma Eleanor did." That night, after dinner, they received an unexpected but welcome visitor. Robert Fisher had driven from Pittsburgh to visit them, as he did from time to time since everything had been resolved. "Robert!" Anna exclaimed, running to hug him. "Did you bring candy?" "I always do, little one," he said, taking a bag of sweets from his pocket. "And how is my favorite farmer?" "Very well. Today I picked a bunch of tomatoes and helped Mommy make a cake." After Anna went to play with her candy, Robert sat with the adults on the porch, where they used to have their most important conversations. "I have news about the case," he said. "Chief Morris had his appeal denied by the higher court. He'll serve the full sentence." "And the others?" Michael asked. "All confirmed as well. And there's more. The investigation you started with your testimonies led to the discovery of similar schemes. In other states, over 40 people involved in corruption have been arrested so far." David nodded with satisfaction. Eleanor would be proud to know that her fight resulted in justice for so many people. "Speaking of Eleanor," Robert said, "there's something I discovered recently that I think you should know." "What is it?" "In her personal papers that were released after the trial, I found a diary she kept about her search for Michael and Anna." Robert took a leather-bound notebook from his backpack. "She wrote about you every day, about how she imagined it would be to meet her grandson, about the plans she made to reunite the family." Talia reached out to take the diary. "Can I see?" "Of course. In fact, I brought it specifically for you." Talia opened the notebook to a random page and read aloud. "Today I found out that Anna likes to draw birds. Robert told me she's constantly drawing at school. I want to buy art supplies for her when we finally meet. I want to teach her that she can fly as high as she dreams." "She wrote that?" Michael asked emotionally. "There are pages and pages like that," Robert confirmed. "She documented every discovery about you, every plan for the future, every hope of reconciliation." David took the diary and flipped through a few pages, reading silently. His tears fell on the pages as he read the words of love and regret that Eleanor had written. "Listen to this," he said, finding a specific page. "I hope David forgives me for hiding Michael from him all these years. It wasn't for lack of love or trust, but for fear that he wouldn't be able to accept a child from another relationship. Now I realize I underestimated the generous man I chose as my life partner. When I tell him the truth, I know he will love Michael as a son, because that's how David loves, completely and without conditions." The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of crickets and the wind in the trees around the house. "She knew us better than we knew ourselves," Michael murmured. "And she was right about everything," David added. "About love, about family, about the importance of fighting for the truth." At that moment, Anna ran out of the house, holding a drawing she had just made. "Look what I drew," she said, showing a sheet full of vibrant colors. The drawing showed a house surrounded by green fields, with 4 figures holding hands in front: a tall man, a woman, a younger man, and a small girl. In the sky, there was a 5th figure with wings, smiling and looking down. "Who is that person in the sky?" Robert asked, although he already knew the answer. "It's Grandma Eleanor," Anna replied naturally. "She's always watching over us." "And how do you know that?" "Because when good things happen, I feel like she's nearby, like when I found Grandpa's family, or when we made friends here, or when Daddy Michael learned to plant tomatoes." David looked at his granddaughter's drawing, seeing in it a wisdom that only children possess. Anna had found a way to keep Eleanor present in their lives, turning memories into protection and longing into gratitude. "You know what I think," he said, hugging Anna. "I think your Grandma Eleanor got exactly what she wanted." What did she want? A united, happy family full of love. So she was pretty smart. She was the smartest person I ever knew. That night, after Robert had left and Anna had fallen asleep, the three adults remained on the porch, looking at the stars and reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them there. "Can you believe that 2 years ago we were on the run, scared, not knowing if we had a future?" Talia said. "And now we have not just a future, but a future we chose to build together," Michael replied. "Eleanor always said that family isn't about blood but about choice," David recalled. "She was right. We choose each other every day. And we'll keep choosing each other," Michael promised, "because that's what it means to be family." As the stars shone over the small Virginia town, a family that had been forged in adversity silently celebrated the victory of love over fear, of unity over division, and of hope over despair. And somewhere among the stars, Eleanor smiled, knowing that her last and greatest work had been the creation of a family that would last forever. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.